For those that are just joining with the recording, we're doing a 45-minute hatha. So you can take a moment and get set up in a spot that feels comfortable in your body. You can lay down, sit down, take child's pose, whatever works for you. As you're getting set up, bring your awareness to your body. Notice your legs, your arms, torso, your head and your neck. So doing a kind of a brief check-in with each of these spots, and notice if there's any tension or anything else going on there. So you're welcome at any point to come back here or take any other pose of rest. You can take different variations of postures and come back. You can walk away and come back. Do whatever you need to do as you move throughout practice that feels good in your body. Drink water, whatever you'd like. Take breaks, all that. If you ever have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. You can put a little chat. You can turn your mic on. I'll just give you a heads up that your screen will be in the recording for a little bit, as the duration of when you're talking. But I'm not like posting it up anywhere. I'm just sending it to people who signed up for this class. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. I've had the feeling like I'm going to sneeze for like an hour. I just have allergies. I'll say how I'm not sick. All right. Bring your awareness to the parts of your body making contact with the floor. And really notice the parts of the floor that are holding you up. And think of the connection between your body and the floor, but also your body and the world around you, the earth beneath the building you're in. And I'd like to hold appreciation here and awareness and gratitude for the land that we're on. Different per person. Where I am, it's Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe land. It might be the same for you. I'm not 100% sure about the folks doing the recording whereabouts you are, but you might be able to sort of be more specific in that way. So holding on to that, take a full breath in your nose and a slow breath out. Let's do one more like that. Full breath in and slow breath out. Begin to add a little bit of movement. You can wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Well, we'll do a first pose that's a little bit more passive, but I'm going to instruct it laying down. You can also do it sitting down if you started sitting. So essentially just first letting your movement happen. You could do a big stretch. You could circle your wrists, your ankles. And then whenever you're ready, bring both feet down onto the floor. Bring your right ankle to your left knee. And then from there, draw your legs towards your chest. Try and keep your sacrum down on the floor and a little tiny lift in your low back, a little tiny lift up there. So not like an intentional big lift. It's a super strong one, like you're holding a grape in your low back, that's allowing your spine to be in neutral. Take one more full breath in. And then exhale, set your left foot down. Set your right foot down. Bring your left ankle to right knee. Nice. From there, draw your legs towards you without using your arms. So sacrum is pressed down, little curve in your low back. Notice if your legs are shifting to the left or to the right. It's okay if they are, it's just an interesting thing to notice. So in this one, we're doing the active range of motion variation of this posture. So I'm sure you can tell using the muscles in the front of your hip flexors. Set your right foot down, left foot down. Separate your feet about mat width apart-ish. Exhale, tip both knees all the way to the left. Pause there for one breath in and one breath out. Inhale to center. Exhale to the right. Sorry, banana. Hold here for a breath. Inhale, come to center. Bring your feet a little closer together. Option to have your arms alongside your body. As you exhale, push your feet into the floor. Lift both, as you inhale, push both feet into the floor. Lift your hips up, lift your arms overhead. So inhale here. Exhale, begin to lower your hips, lower your arms. So just doing a little bit of movement with our breath to kind of wake ourselves up a little bit. One more inhale, lift your hips up, lift your arms overhead. Actually, we'll do two more, sorry. Exhale, lower your hips, lower your arms. Last time, as you inhale, slow lift up of your hips, lift your arms overhead. And exhale, lower hips, lower arms. Nice roll over to one side. And press your left hand into the floor. You can make your way to standing. If you feel like taking child's pose or any other movements along the way, feel free. I don't know if you can see my cat's laying on the floor right beside my mat. All right, find a spot to stand with your feet so that you can have your feet really close together if you feel like it. You can have your feet a little further apart, but bring your awareness to your feet and notice where you're holding your weight. We've done this before if you've been in this class before. I like to have this kind of at the beginning. Notice if you're leaning into your heels. Maybe you're leaning to one side or the other. Maybe you're leaning forwards. Are you locking your knees? Are you gripping the floor with your toes? And then once you sort of notice that, try to intentionally do some of those movements, except for the flex or locking your knees one. So lean all the way to the left, all the way to the right, lean forwards and back. Take a little second, maybe little circles, and then find the middle of your feet. So pressing into your heels and both sides of your toe mounds evenly, so that your toes aren't necessarily gripping the floor. If you do notice that, try and come back to the middle. Think of pressing evenly again, inside and outside edges of your feet, as well as front to back. Favor your left foot. So starting to lift off your right foot, turn your knee to the side. From here, you can step your right foot onto your left leg anywhere. Hands to heart. Or you might move your arms. Maybe you take your arms overhead or in reverse prayer. So one of the reasons I like to start, I don't know if I've said this before or not. If it's a repeat, you can ignore me if you feel like it. One of the reasons I like to start with that little short exercise and noticing your feet and finding the center is because sometimes folks, there was definitely a long period of time where I had no idea what it meant to press evenly into your feet. But also when we're not thinking about how we're standing, in our day to day, we tend to have a favorite thing. Like if I'm not thinking about it, I will lean to the outsides of my feet, lock my knees. Is it a great way to stand in terms of like functionality? Probably not. So you kind of like building in that awareness of how you're standing. So you're like, okay, I'm like the outsides of my feet. Maybe that's why my legs are sore at the end of the day. Going back to having your feet on the floor, that kind of thing. All right, so bring your hands to your hips, turn your right knee to the front, and then step your right foot down. Take a moment before we go right into the other side. Take a moment to find again those three corners, middle of your heel, both sides of your toenails. Notice if you're locking in your knees or if you're gripping with your toes. And then begin to turn your left knee to the left so that you're favoring your right foot. Step or prop your left foot onto your right leg. So check in again, arms wherever you like, with what happens with your legs here. So do you lock your knees? Are you sinking into your right hip? Can you think of that same push into your right foot? A little bit more in this case than just regular standing, right? So kind of pushing your right foot into left, your right leg into left foot into right leg. The cat's going to cause a little sound. Hopefully it's not too loud on your side. I have the box from the Christmas tree, which is an empty box underneath the table. And she's trying to get into the very small handle. Anyway, I thought you might appreciate the ridiculous visual there. Bring your hands to your hips. Left knee forwards, left foot down. Feet might be right together. They might be a little bit apart. Your choice. Inhale, circle both arms overhead. Interlace your fingers, release your index fingers, or bend your elbows. Place your hands on your head. Exhale, side bend to the right. So notice what's happening with your legs as you're here. Can you think of squeezing your feet towards each other? Like you're trying to pull your feet to touch. Or squeezing your inner thighs towards each other. Last 2 breaths here. And press into your feet. Inhale, come back up. Exhale to the other side. You might switch up your arms if you'd like, maybe switching your grip up. So the opposite pinky forwards. Again, notice your legs. Think of squeezing inner thighs towards each other. Allow hips to move to the right. If you have your hands on your head, are you pressing your head forwards past your shoulders? And you think of keeping your head over your shoulders. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, arms at your sides. 2 slow breaths here. Reach both arms forwards, maybe forwards and out a little bit. Separate your feet a bit. Maybe point your toes out if that feels comfortable in your body, and then bend your knees. So knees go forward, hips move back in space. You're not only bending at your ankles, bending at your knees, but you're also bending at your hips, so creating sort of a lightning bolt shape. As your knees go forwards, think of pushing your heels into the ground and trying to pull the tops of your feet towards your shins. Check in with the direction your knees are pointing. You want them to be pointing in the same direction as your toes. So knees can pass toes. You're just wanting to check in that knees and toes are pointing in the same direction. check in with your breath. Are you holding your breath? Is your brain somewhere else? Can you bring awareness back to your body, back to how this feels in your body? And hey, if you want to stick with this kind of theme that we set up, maybe you really keep checking back in with your feet and your ankles. Like, how do your feet and your ankles feel here, or your legs? Maybe you're checking with the spot that you know you tend to hold tension. So are your shoulders like all the way up to your ears? Are you clenching in your jaw? So you have an option to stay here if you feel like it. I'm just gonna add in a little balance challenge. So as you inhale, start to come back up. This is the second variation of the posture. Begin to slowly lift your heels up so that your heels are over top of your toes. And I'll try facing you. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this, but it's difficult unless you have a mirror to look at your own feet, but you want to think about pressing your heels over the top or over the center of your feet so that you're kind of hiding your heels behind your toes or behind your tops of your feet. So this pose is called Powerful Pose 2 or Awkward Pose, as I'm sure you can figure out why it's called Awkward Pose. It can feel really awkward to come into this shape. Because as you're here, I'm going to turn to the side so I can use the wall for a sec. As you're here and your heels are really, really lifted, you have the option of bending your knees again. And this time of year, when we're now walking on the snow, balancing is a little extra hard because your muscles and your legs are working differently. And also coming up to a big stretch like this can be a lot for the fronts of your feet. We don't do that kind of movement all the time. Yes, slowly come back up. So if you're bending your knees, start to lengthen your legs again and then set your heels down, arms at your sides. Take a breath in. You can do a little wiggle out if you feel like it. Maybe you sigh out your mouth or your nose. Inhale, circle both arms overhead. Exhale, bring your right arm underneath your left. So you can twist, tie your arms or hold opposite shoulders. Bend your knees. Right leg over top of left. So right arm under, right leg over. Notice as you move into the legs, are you moving your whole body? Is it like a twist? If that's the case, or you're not sure, come out of the legs for a sec. Add a little softening to your knees or bend your knees if you feel like it. Lift your right leg up, and instead of just kind of twisting, think of pushing your right knee against something, like you're pressing something with your right knee, so moving it to the left side of your body, and then bend your knees a little further and cross your legs that way. So it's all about the movement happening right in your hip rather than it being like a twist. Point your right toes. If you have it in your practice where you have your toes behind you, behind your left leg, I'll actually encourage you to point your toes as well and really consider the way that you came into the posture. So you're wanting to really focus on the internal press with your right leg. Full breath in your nose. Exhale, squeeze your legs, squeeze your arms. You could sigh again if that feels good. Step your right foot down beside your left. Circle both arms overhead. Breathe in. Exhale, left arm underneath your right. Bend your knees. Left leg over top of right, or lift your left leg first. Press your left leg to the right as if you're trying to, I don't know, like if you have resistance, and then cross left leg over right. So left arm under, left leg over, eagle pose. Garadasana. Squeeze your legs and your arms. Find length in both sides of your body. And you might be hinging at your hips here. This is sort of dependent on, or it is dependent on the length like of your torso compared to the length of your legs. So some folks will be here and their knees will be bent and they're upright. Some folks will be here and they're leaning forwards. You might try both. How does one feel? How does the other feel? Sometimes one might feel like you're going to fall over. Not ideal. Sometimes one will feel like a lot in your back. In that case, also not particularly ideal. You can kind of lean forward. Last breath. From there, step your feet down to the floor, circle your arms overhead, breathe in. And then exhale, circle your arms wide, bring your hands behind you. So you can interlace your fingers behind your back if that's comfortable. You might have your hands like you're putting your hands in your back pockets. And depending on the person and depending on the tension that you might be feeling here, this can be enough. This can be a lot. My arms are a little sore, so I'm actually going to stop here. You might squeeze your shoulder blades together and begin to lift your chest. So press, kind of think of lifting your chest forwards like you're being lifted up by your chest, but also the muscles in your back are engaged to help with that lift. So squeeze your shoulder blades to spine. Engage glutes, soften your knees. You might even think of pressing your hips forwards and then really using the muscles in your back to have a bit of a lift. So though it's called a back bend, you're thinking of it more like a lift up. And then I'll give you about 3 more breaths here, but if you feel like coming out of it, if it becomes too much, if it brings up any kind of anxiety and it's uncomfortable, take your time and come out of it. When you do, hands on your body, if that feels comfortable, hands might be at your sides. Take a moment, take a couple breaths and really notice your feet. Maybe you do that little rock from the beginning. That's another little trick about that thing I like to do at the beginning of this class. It can be a really good exercise for grounding if you need a little extra thing to focus on. Do that same thing. Lean to the side, really notice your feet as if you're trying to memorize the perimeter of your feet kind of thing. So if you're not already out of the posture, you can slowly make your way out now. Take a moment. You check in. What do you need right now? When you're ready, we'll make our way to a lunge. So I'm just going to turn to face the side of my mat. Bring your hands onto your hips. Add a little bend to your knees. Hinge at your hips. And then step your right foot back. So it's a fairly far step. You're high on your heels. Your toes are down on the floor. And then reach your arms alongside your body, so that your leg and your arms, your torso are all in one long line. The back of your neck is long as well. So depending on like where you're set up, you might be looking a foot or so in front of your mat. Think of pressing the backs of your arms up, as well as pressing the back of your right leg up. Rib cage is kind of moving a little closer together. But as you exhale, let there be movement. As you inhale, let there be movement, or both. Inhale, let your rib cage expand. Exhale, rib cage comes closer together. When you're ready, inhale, circle your arms overhead. So adding in a little back bend. If that's not something you're wanting to do today, you can stay here, maybe reach your arms forwards. Otherwise, allow, again, the muscles in your back to help lift your chest up towards the ceiling. And then open your arms, warrior two. So we're just using that as a transition. Bending into your left leg in warrior two. Now we're wanting to find neutral in your spine. So a little curve in your back for sure. Notice if you're locking in your right knee. Left knee bending in the same direction as your toes are pointing. Keep your right knee bent, reach your right arm or left arm back. Sorry, keep your left knee bent, reach your left arm back. Exhale, warrior two. Tip your right arm down, left arm up. You're also welcome to straighten your left leg. In that case, slide your torso forwards to sort of tip forwards first. Or you might do that with your knee, your knee straight. Whichever option you'd like, whichever variation. Check in with what's happening with your breath again and your brain. Is your brain somewhere else? Are you planning? Are you wanting to escape? Are you wanting to do other things? If so, think about kind of pressing snooze on those. Acknowledge them. It's like, hey, I see you. I see this thing that keeps popping up in my brain. I'm going to come back to you in a little while. And not just a 5-minute snooze, but it's okay if in 5 minutes it's the same process. All right, come back up as you breathe in. Hands to your hips. And the heel toe your right foot closer to your left, and then step your right foot forwards. Same transition, bit of a bend in your knees, hinge at your hips, and then step your left foot back. So your toes are on the floor, your heel is high, arms are alongside your body. So this is also a bit of a stretch. We talked about a different stretch at the beginning for your feet. This one is also a bit of a stretch for your back foot, particularly in your toes. So if it feels like a lot, you can have your foot less high over your toes if having it directly over top is painful. Press your arms up. Think of pressing your left leg up. And length in the back of your neck. You can stay here if you'd like, or inhale, circle both arms overhead. Pause here for a sec. Exhale, open your arms, warrior two. So right knee and right toes pointing in the same direction. Are you locking your left knee? How does this feel in your feet? In your ankles? Can you find a little bit more softness around your face? Keep your right knee bent. Sweep your right arm back in space. Exhale, come back to warrior two, and then tip your right hand down, left arm up. Or if you feel like it, straighten your leg first, slide forwards, and then tip your right hand down, left hand up. Both of these options, you're finding space in the sides of your body. So rib cage and hips are moving away from one another. You're thinking of, if your leg is straight, your right leg, thinking of pulling it back, as if you're trying to pull your mat to your left foot. If your knee is bent, not as much the pulling, you're bending into your right knee, and then you're pressing your knee to the right side. So it's still over top of your toes. Last little bit here, like 2 breaths or so. Inhale, come back up. And move into a forward fold. So point both of your toes or all of your toes in the same direction. You can take your forward fold from here, have your feet wide. You might bring your feet closer together if that's comfortable, in which case you can heel toe your feet and then step, and then hinge at your hips. If you would like a little extra support, you might grab I can't really show you, I don't have anything nearby that will help. You can, if you imagine there being something under my elbows, you can grab a table or a chair or something like that and have a little support that way. If rounding at your back is feeling like a lot. Sorry, I have the hiccups. Sneezing and hand hiccups. It's a big class. It's a big ordeal. I'm not sure what's going on. Otherwise, you can prop your elbows on your knees, or you can just let your spine round and head be heavy. If having your head heavy and your spine round feels good in your body, you might also do like a little rock back and forth, maybe shaking out your head. Notice here how you're using your feet. Often in forward folds, we tend to lean back a lot because it feels like we might fall forwards if we don't. Try and find the middle of your feet, which will feel a lot like you're leaning forwards. Now, I'm not saying I want you to fall over, of course, but experiment with bringing your weight a little bit more forwards into your feet, almost thinking of having your weight in your toes. Pressing your tailbone up towards the ceiling. So remember the beginning of practice, how we did the thread the needle and we focused on that hinging at your hips? Similar thing is happening here, that hinging of your hips, but this time, of course, we're flipped around, right? But we have that engagement in the front of your hips. And I'll just let you take your time here. If you feel like taking a little extra time, go for it. When you feel ready, you can, if you're in the wide-legged variation, walk your hands all the way to one side of your body and then make your way to your belly, laying down on your belly. Right, so from there, have your hands framing your chest. Press your feet down into the floor. Draw your shoulders together behind you. Inhale, peel your chest up. Pressing your feet down quite a bit, knees are lifted. Engage your glutes. So again, all the muscles in your back are working to help lift your chest off the floor. Exhale, come down and rest your forehead. You can look one way if you'd like. So you can take a baby cobra, that's the pose we just did. You can take that pose again if you feel like it, or you can reach your arms alongside your body this time. Option to interlace your fingers behind your back. And in this case, lift your chest the same way, so your gaze is still down, and then lift your legs as well. So point your toes and lift your feet. Engage your glutes. So like you're kind of like you're pressing your hip bones down into the floor. Press your arms up, press your legs up. Nice. Exhale, come down. You're going to make your way to your back. So you might roll to your side and then make your way to your back. You might press the child's pose and do a little flip around that way. Entirely up to you. From your back, bend your knees so your feet are on the floor. Arms are wide, maybe a T shape if you have the space. I'm going to scoot your hips to the left a little bit. Lift your shins up parallel to the floor and then slowly tip your knees all the way to the right. So moving into a spinal twist. You can play around a little bit as well with where your knees are. You might use pillows or blocks underneath your knees or in between your knees. Bring your knees to center. Center your hips. Pause there for a sec. And then move your knees to the right. Lift your shins parallel-ish, and the knees slowly to the left. Lift your knees back up. Center your hips. Pause here for a moment. So lift your shins parallel to the floor. Pivot your hands so that your hands are down on the ground. Your arms are still out, hands are down on the floor. If you don't have the space to do straight out, you can have your hands a little closer to you. We're gonna do one more little active thing before we chill out more. Breathe in here. As you exhale, start to tip your knees towards the right, going as much as you can control. So it doesn't have to be all the way to the floor. You might tip halfway to the right or less than. Come back to center. Exhale to the left. So going slow, and it does not have to be very much movement. It could be a couple of inches to the left here. Inhale, slow to center. Do one more each side. Exhale, slow tip to the right. Inhale to center. Exhale to the left. Inhale to center. Nice. Might hug your knees in towards your chest. Do a little rock. Bring the bottoms of your feet to touch. Cobbler's pose. The closer your feet to you, the more you might feel this. So when you're ready, begin to make your way to your final resting pose. And it does not have to be laying on your back. It doesn't particularly matter, to be honest, the shape that you take, as long as it feels comfortable for you. So you can set up with blankets and pillows. You can like get onto your couch, lay down onto your bed, lean your back against the wall, like whatever works for you. And take a moment as you're setting up And notice how your body feels. Like, how do your legs feel? How do your arms feel? Is there anywhere that's tense? Maybe if there is, maybe you adjust. Holding a moment, holding a little bit of gratitude for how your practice was, how it felt in your body. We're going to completely throw out any expectations for what practice should have looked like. That does not matter. I know that your brain will tell you that it does, but it does not matter. How it felt in your body, listening to how it felt, that's the most important thing. So take a moment, hold appreciation for your practice, how it felt in your body, for you, for taking the time to listen to your body and move and have this time for yourself, for self-care. And then begin to sort of let that go, let any focus on anything go. Maybe noticing your breath instead. Soften the muscles around your jaw, around your forehead. Noticing anywhere else that might be tense. Excuse me, or you might be gripping. Take a slow breath in your nose. And then you might sigh it out your mouth. You are more than welcome to stay here and practice as long as you'd like. I mean, I'll hold space for another 5 minutes or so. If you have any questions, you can ask them here. You can send me an email if you have any feedback or requests for future stuff, or just want to say hi, please feel welcome to. I hope that you have a really fantastic day. Thank you so much for practicing, for sharing your energy and your breath. I hope you were able to take a little second and thank yourself, because you're super strong and super awesome. I'm going to end the recording here, but again, reach out if you have any questions or anything like that. Thank you.